Welcome to Thursday for Trainers. This is M.E.S.S.A.G.E, the author of The Accelerated Trainer. Someone who has a real passion for education, for teachers, for trainers, as a vocation, not just a job. And I wanted to share with you my overview mind map of what we've called the Learn Fast system here, the message model of accelerated learning. If you have a look at the centre of the image and then just out, the main branches have words that begin with the letters spelling the word message. So M for mindset, E for entrance, S for share and then switch ownership. Second S for store, A for act, G for go again, and E for engage. My model of accelerated learning, design and delivery is based then around this set of phases, not stages, phases, because they all overlap. But we do begin with mindset, and it's important to create an environment and a mind state. So it's a mindset for a mind setting, the environment, and a mindset for a mind state, where the body is relaxed and the mind is open to new ideas. And to do that, you have to do baggage check-in first of all. What I mean by that is it's really important to recognise that your working memory is finite. We reckon it to be able to cope with 7 plus or minus 2 groups of information. So you can cope with a lot of information if they're grouped correctly, but the limit, the ceiling, is 7 plus or minus 2. And so what we seek to do when we set people up in the right mind setting for accelerated learning is to give them an opportunity to lay aside any baggage, to check in any baggage, so that their mind might have all 7 plus or minus 2 processing units of power available to work on the learning so that they may learn it at an accelerated rate. And to do that, we must recognise that some of the baggage is good baggage. This is not necessarily bad stuff that we would associate with the word baggage. When you check your baggage in at the airport, it's good stuff, it's precious stuff. So we do some exercises like the Sedona method, and we write down what we want to check in so that we can clear the mind. And I'm going to go into that in more depth at another time. We also need to focus the mindset on the benefits of the learning. WIIFM, the world's favourite radio station, what's in it for me? So that it's relevant to the learners. They have a clear mind and a focused mind. They have that clarity of mind and clarity of focus and a real can-do attitude that's rooted in what they've learned already. This is not completely new stuff. There is continuity. Once we've established the right environment, we keep that mindset going while we introduce the concept of entrance. And you'll see on the picture here, radio VHF, which stands for a reframing of NLP, really, neuro-linguistic programming. Neuro-linguistic programming talks about visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory and gustatory. It's a bit confusing for people who have not done their NLP training yet. So we talk about VHF, which in radio parlance means very high frequency. And if you'd like to have a very high frequency of engaging people with your message, whether that be a presentation to a networking group or a seminar or a lesson, anywhere where fresh content needs to come across, the more doors you open to the mind, the faster and more effective the integration of the learning. So there's a door there with radio VHF on it to stand for vision, hearing and feeling. And feeling is physical feeling there, what they call kinesthetic. So if they can touch it and do it, that's the feeling. If they can hear it and if they can see it, then there's going to be a faster flow of information through the entrance gates. And there's only 5 gates. It's what you see, it's what you hear, it's what you feel, it's what you touch. It's what you smell, and it's what you taste. And the more you can use more senses in getting your message across, the more your message makes sense. And also, the easier it is to recall because you've got more sensory triggers to remind you of the content. That's one of the reasons we use mind mapping, because it's so visual, it's so kinesthetic. And if you talk about it as well, you're using that sense too. Hey, you could even use smelly pens. Ooh, I used to think that was enough. You know, if you really made it engaging and sensorily rich, sensory enrichment rather than sensory deprivation, then surely people would get it, but they didn't, because they need to own the learning. And I know now that people have so many emails and so many inputs from social media and from the internet that they're flooded with information. So the best process is to share ownership and then switch ownership. And what I do is I share an example from a British film of many years ago now called The Full Monty, where one of them has learned how to dance properly, ballroom dancing, and wants to choreograph the other people to raise money by dancing in front of their friends. Sounds a bit bizarre, doesn't it? Anyway, He's trying to convey a very, very simple message, which is come forward in a straight line and put your hand up, but gets really frustrated because they keep getting it wrong. So he blasphemes, which I won't do, but he then says, I want you to come forward in a straight line and put your hand up. What have I got to do? And there's this awkward pause. And then one of them says, well, it's the Arsenal offside trap, isn't it? A football metaphor. And a bit of magic suddenly happens. The guy that's supposed to be leading then loses the leadership and just says, do what? And the chap who's had the vision of how they could own this learning, he says, well, it's the Arsenal offside trap, isn't it? Lumper here is Tony Adams. If any bugger looks like scoring, we'll come forward in a line and wave our hands around like a fairy. And the guy next to him goes, well, that's easy. So the guy that was the leader then says, all right. And they put the music on. And all these guys come forward in a perfect straight line, put their hand up and go 1, 2, 3, ref. The Arsenal offside trap. And the leader, who was and now is again, says, perfect. And the guy said it was easy, turns to him and said, well, you should have said. And the interesting thing there is in that 56 seconds of British movie history, you've got a wonderful articulation of Howard Gardner from Harvard University's model of multiple intelligence. When they put it in their own words, it's the Arsenal offside trap, they own the learning. When they reflect and make that connection, hey, it's the Arsenal offside trap, that's intrapersonal, reflective learning. When they do it all together as a group, that's social learning, interpersonal learning. When they do it to music, that's musical learning. When they do it physically, that's physical learning. When they do it physically in relation to one another, that's visual spatial intelligence, visual spatial learning. So you see in that one little clip all 7 aspects of Howard Gardner's original work, Frames of Mind. So what we do in learning and in presentations wherever possible is give the opportunity over to the group for them to do something. The Chinese said, and still say, I hear, I forget, I see, I remember, I do, I understand. So whilst we're doing physical stuff and visual stuff and hearing stuff at the entrance phase, that then flows into the next phase where the learners take control of the learning. And we co-create the learning experience. And I thought, surely that's enough. But it isn't enough because there's so much that's going to flood into their lives after the learning experience. So we have to make sure we make it stick. We make the learning sticky. So the next phase is store. And you can see on the mind map here how I use association, emotion, imagination, order, and the unusual to make it sticky. Use mnemonics, use acronyms, use mind maps, use songs, use raps to lock down the key points as diagnosed and recognised by the learners. Well, you know what I'm going to say now. I thought that was enough. No, it's not. What we've got to do is boost their confidence too. So you as a trainer, you as the educator, you as the teacher need to understand that the students have got it. So what I do is I act by setting up playful game shows where they can catch themselves getting it right. Catch themselves using the knowledge in a new and powerful way. And what's going to happen is they're going to convince themselves of their own competence. They're going to convince you too of their competence. But the magic's going to be their confidence. They're going to have confidence in their learning, confidence in themselves, and confident that they could then go and apply it. To make certain of this, we move into the go again phase where we layer the memories. We go over the memories. It's like going through a field of ripe corn. As you are the first person to walk through that field of corn, farmers not particularly thrilled at it, I'm sure, but nevertheless they can see where you've walked. If other walkers then follow your path, you will build a very clear path through the field of corn. And if you imagine the field of distractions that we have to deal with, the field of other contents, not bad distractions always, sometimes it's very valid stuff we need to go and do in the rest of our lives, there is a danger of losing that memory trace. So what we do by the rhythm of review, which I'll talk about in another session, by the discipline of reflection, and by the joy of rehearsal, we go again over and over the same path in an enjoyable and engaging and end-to-training way, and an end-training way, which I will also explore in another broadcast with you. We go again until there's a highway of learning through the learner's minds, so they've really owned it, they've acted on it, they've stored it, they've gone again, so that it becomes second nature or a path of least resistance. And the final phase that brings it full circle is that engagement where we make a commitment to the future, where we have a vision of using our learning And so I would encourage the learners to go into their future and think about where they can first apply this new learning to add practical value to what they've learned. And in Swedish, that's called memories of the future. It's a future scenario that is then stored in your memory, which we usually associate with the past, I understand. And they call it memories of the future. And what you've done is you've built into the neural architecture of the student's mind then a clear vision of a future where they've owned the learning, applied it, made it personal to themselves, and started on that wonderful path of making the new habit permanent, as Tony Robbins talks about making it part of their physiology. They do it so often that it becomes part of their flesh. Or in spiritual terms, the word becomes flesh. There's the introduction then to the message model, the Learn Fast system for learning anything faster, keeping those results longer and integrating them at such a deep level that it becomes part of your physiology. Little call to action here. I'm looking this year, over the next 12 months, for 15 key trainers in the UK and 1 key trainer in any other country that's interested in taking this on to become experts in accelerated learning, that we might build the registry of accelerated trainers and teachers and disseminate this message so that we may become revolutionaries in education for the sake of our children, for the sake of our future, and even for the sake of our communities, our countries, and our planet. If you have a vision as a vocation, as training and teaching as a vocation for you, I'd love to connect with you. So reach out to me, I'll reach out to you, and together we'll make a difference.